This may sound surprising, but for my money, Apple TV Plus is maybe the best value as far as streaming services go. They have a good ratio of gems to junk, unlike some people. And one of those gems is Silo, based on Hugh Howey's novel Wool. Now, there's absolutely no way to adequately talk about this amazing show without getting into pretty heavy spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, go do that. If you don't have Apple TV Plus, take advantage of the free 7-day trial and just blow through it. It's currently just one season. Because it's very much worth signing up for that, forgetting to cancel it in time, and accidentally paying for a full month. It's just that good. Quick disclaimer, I'm going to skip over a lot in my summary, but I'll try to hit the most important and relevant points. Silo takes place in a future where the planet has evidently been ravaged by some apocalyptic event that drove the remnants of humanity, about 10,000 people, underground to live in a gigantic structure called the Silo. Think of a vault from Fallout, minus the nuclear age aesthetic and jumpsuits and horrific experiments. I said evidently because the people of the Silo have been down there for generations, so long in fact that they've forgotten what caused the destruction of the outside world. None of them have ever been above ground, and they lost all of their history when a rebellion inside the Silo years before, wherein a group of insurgents tried to open the doors to the surface, led to the loss of their entire history. Legend has it, those people burned all the books and destroyed all the records. Now all they know is the surface is toxic and they need to stay underground. They live by something called the Pact, a sort of constitution created by their forefathers. It governs all aspects of society, how people live and work, how they have kids, how crime and punishment is handled, and so on. It includes some odd tidbits, such as a strict forbidding of magnifying glasses or elevators. Hence, their only mode of transportation between levels in this underground skyscraper is the central winding staircase. Items from the past, which they call relics, are also strictly regulated and largely forbidden. A lot of times, these are innocuous things such as watches, books, or even toys. Essentially things from before the rebellion and even before the creation of the Silo. If someone is caught with a relic, there's a good chance they'll be sent to clean, as the residents say, which is the Silo's main form of capital punishment. You see, they have a single sensor monitoring the outside world, a camera placed just above the entrance, pointing towards a nearby hill. Venturing outside means certain death, but the camera needs to be cleaned at least semi-regularly. And so people who have committed serious enough crimes, or people who just want to take their chances, are sent outside to clean and die. This is seen by the residents of the Silo as a great service and a sacrifice. That all comes into question one day when Allison Becker, wife of Sheriff Holston Becker, starts going down a rabbit hole of truth and conspiracy involving the Silo's mysterious past and its present horrors keeping certain women from having children. Her story culminates in declaring she wants to go outside, meaning certain death. Anyone who says they want to go outside are free to do so, but it cannot be taken back. And so that's what she does. Her husband can't believe why she's doing this, but she's convinced the outside world is not what it seems to be. The camera feed they get is wrong, and the outside world is not a wasteland at all. It's green and full of life. She tells her husband that if the outside world is truly what they're being told it is, she will walk away without looking back. But if it's what she says it is, she will clean the camera, and that's how Holston will know. And what does Allison do when the time comes? She cleans the camera with a knowing smile before walking away and collapsing. Naturally, at this point, we the audience know that the camera feed is wrong. They are all being lied to, and the world outside the Silo is lush and vibrant. Allison, a character we trusted, went and saw it and told us as much. For all we know, she is still alive waiting for Holston to come join her. And that's what we're hoping for as Holston then proceeds to journey down his own rabbit hole of truth and discovery a couple of years later. Holston is really put on the path after a man named George Wilkins, who was the one who showed Allison a forbidden hard drive full of world-shattering information that made her leave the silo, is found dead at the bottom of the skyscraper tall staircase. George Wilkins' lover, a lower-level engineer named Juliet Nichols, is adamant that it was murder. Through the course of Holston's investigation, he becomes overtaken by the same feeling that nothing is as it seems, just like his wife did. And that all culminates in Holston following in his wife's footsteps. Literally, he asks to go outside. They seal him in his enviro suit and send him on his way. This time, we see what he sees through his own eyes: a beautiful, peaceful, pristine landscape. He cleans the camera and goes on his way. And for some reason, he starts to have a hard time breathing, collapses, takes off his helmet, and falls down on the ground next to Allison's body. This time, we saw what's outside with our own eyes, so we know the truth. The people in the silo are definitely, without question, being lied to, kept underground for some nefarious purpose, and they need to be freed. This show front-loaded the twist, and now we're rooting for the characters to catch up with what we know. Granted, there's still some questions as to where the people go once they're outside. Do they fall unconscious to be picked up later? Are Allison and Holston sitting tight in a lab somewhere, being held against their will and waiting for someone to come save them? Because if the feed to the outside world is being faked, what's to say that the dead bodies are not being faked too? Why on earth are the citizens of the silo being lied to? What's the point of keeping them down there, and who's behind all this? These are questions we then count on Juliet Nichols to answer, because Sheriff Holston left behind a letter naming her as his chosen successor, as well as cryptic hints that there are answers she needs to find, both regarding the murder of George Wilkins and the true nature of the silo. We are primed for an epic mystery thriller filled with twists and turns and an unraveling conspiracy. First, it looks like the judicial department is behind everything. It's their equivalent to the KGB. They know all the secrets and have all the power. When the mayor and deputy sheriff are killed, it's got to be judicial. Well, it almost certainly is, because we see the deputy sheriff killed by one of their people, and then he himself is murdered by his superior, Robert Sims, to cover it all up. We know for a fact that judicial is up to no good. They're the bad guys. Throughout all of this, who does Juliet have to lean on? A few friends and confidants, but also the new interim mayor, Bernard Holland, head of the IT department. At first, we naturally suspect him being involved somehow, especially with how he's loving the late mayor's stash of luxury booze. But then it becomes obvious he does not have the imagination for that kind of thing. He's an IT man. He deals with numbers and code. A man like that has no use for conspiracies, subterfuge, and power plays. When we first meet him, he's chastising Allison for not following procedure before publishing a very dry article on how to recover deleted files. Later, he basically does the same to Juliet for stealing some of his department's heat tape. Clearly, the man is so consumed by the small stuff, he has no vision for the big picture. The only thing he's concerned about is order, and all of this murder stuff is bad for order. Bernard is possibly one of the few people Juliet can safely count on. We follow Juliet as she ventures all up and down the silo, pulling at every string, looking under every rock, getting closer and closer to the truth. Not only do we root for her to get justice for the murder of George Wilkins and find closure and all that, we also look forward to everyone learning what we know, that they are being lied to, and the surface world is not what they're being told it is, and to find freedom. And when all is said and done, we learn Judicial is not behind it at all. In fact, the head of Judicial is herself a prisoner. George Wilkins was not murdered, he met his demise at his own hand. The camera feed to the surface is actually telling the truth. The surface world is a wasteland, and it's the helmet that people wear when they go outside is what is actually projecting a false image. Holston and Allison Becker are really dead. They have been this whole time. And we're not alone. There are multiple other silos dotting the landscape, dozens if not hundreds. And Bernard was the bad guy this whole time, where he now has all the answers and we have all the questions because the ground we thought we were standing on wasn't as solid as we'd hoped. Bernard did not like Allison publishing an article on data recovery because that could, and did, lead to someone digging up an old hard drive and finding information they should not have. And he was so precious about IT's heat tape because it's better than Mechanical's heat tape, and that's why he hated Juliet stealing it. It was the good stuff. And since Juliet secretly had IT's heat tape swapped in when they prepped her exosuit, she was properly sealed and protected, hence she becomes the first person to not die minutes after leaving the silo. The people who leave the silo with the inferior heat tape used on them are meant to die, and Bernard knows it. In an age where plot twists are conflated with quality and everyone is on the lookout for them, Silo manages to still pull the rug out from under you on its own terms. And it does this despite breaking all the norms that come with that sort of thing. Generally, governing logic would say you need to lull the audience into a false sense of security, keep them from having any reason to suspect anything isn't as it seems. That's getting harder to do because, like I said, everyone is looking out for twists and turns nowadays. In fact, people will come up with theories for every little detail now. You truly can't hide anything when your audience is rushing ahead of the story looking for big reveals. And in that case, what Silo does is use the audience's momentum against itself. It seems like, more than anything, viewers hate being kept in the dark, hate not having all the cards, and that in itself is kind of a major problem that hampers storytelling these days, but we'll unpack that later. And so the show plays a sleight of hand by making a gesture of giving the viewer all the cards close to the beginning. It says, look, here it is. This is the math we're dealing with. You have way more answers than the characters, and this show is going to be about the characters catching up to you. For the most part, at least. There's still a few questions left open, but it satisfies enough of that plot twist itch to capture and hold the audience's attention. It's very cognizant of what the viewer may be thinking. When Bernard shows up, oh, he's definitely a bad guy, don't trust him. But then the story puts in the legwork to reverse that suspicion. Alright, he's a straight shooter. Only to go back and tell you, you fool, you were right the first time. And it does not resort to any cheap tricks, I don't think so. Only audience expectations. It's a great way to somehow surprise a viewer with something they already saw coming. Because you as the writer can tell your audience whatever you want, but it does not mean they'll believe you. In fact, usually it's the opposite. But if you show them something, if you let them feel like they're discovering the truth for themselves, or let a character they trust tell them, they'll accept whatever you need them to until you're ready to lift the veil. In telling its story, Silo also teaches us how wrong we can be. It counts on the viewer to fill in the blanks with their preconceived ideas and expectations and come to a wrong conclusion, which is something a lot of us do in our day-to-day lives. Was there evidence of a cover-up and conspiracy? Yes, but in the end, the powers that be were telling the truth about the central mystery. The story knew we loved rooting for the underdog and loved tales of breaking free from unjust regimes and systems. But one thing being true does not preclude everything else from also being true. That's not to say conspiracy theories are all right, or that you should put more stock in them. If anything, it's the opposite. All this is to say that you cannot adequately be sure of something until you have adequate evidence. And what you know today can, and probably should, shift tomorrow. We may think we have all the answers today, but imagine what we'll know tomorrow. I thought about asking you what some of your favorite plot twists are, but that'd turn the comments section into a bit of a minefield, so I'll ask this. What do you think are the most unique post-apocalyptic stories? It's a fascinating genre for a reason. If I held your attention for this long, please grab a like on your way out and subscribe if you still have to. Check out some of my backlog. I also sell mugs and shirts and stuff with my face on it if you want to show off your obscure YouTube creator cred. Thanks for watching, and for now, stay tough and stop by again sometime.